Forming your relationship. I am your host, Bonitto Grange, and tonight you're in for a treat. We've got some special guests, some great friends here with me, and we're talking about Clive Atkinson. Clive Atkinson, we have Neville Wright, we have Stephen Ross, we have Daniel Harper. So our topic tonight, I've been told that the men are waiting to hear. So when are we going to have our turn? Last couple of weeks we've had in the past few weeks we've had what every wives wished your husband knew. So we've heard from the men, so now we have a few men on and we're going to hear what every husband kind of wished your wives knew. So we're going to tap into that a little bit tonight and just have some fun. So I'm just going to allow these great individuals to introduce themselves, and we're going to have some conversation right after. Never Right. Come on and Never Right. Introduce yourself. Tell us who you are. I know who you are. Good friend of ours.
Hey everyone, thanks for having me on the show. My name is Neville Wright. I am a performance massage therapist and a speed and strength coach, as well as a speaker. So I do motivational, inspirational speaking as well. I was a former athlete as well, competed in 3 Olympic Games, and was also a former sprinter for Canada.
Beautiful. I've never had the opportunity to go out and perform, but watch them on TV, and I guess that's as close as I'm going to get to those games. Thanks for coming on, Neville, and taking up the challenge. And then we have Stephen McLeod. So, by the way, Neville's from Edmonton, so he's pretty well my next door neighbor. And then we have Stephen McLeod. He's from Jamaica, so he's allowed me to have his time here tonight. We've had him on here before, and he's becoming a great friend of ours here. He's always got some great insights. Him and his wife, they are a dynamic duo. So, Stephen, tell us a little bit about you before we start. You're muted.
Okay, okay, all right. I think
Yeah,
I'm there now.
we can hear
Good
you.
day, everyone. My name is Stephen McLeod. I am a writer, graphic designer, and the- my business is in publishing. So we do academic books as one of our core products is academic books for high schools.
Beautiful. Thanks for coming in, Stephen, tonight. And then we have Daniel Harper. I've known him for a while now. And by the way, all these men's been married for 10 years plus. So we have a great group here. All right, Daniel.
Well, good evening, everybody. Hope that everyone's doing well. It's certainly a pleasure to be here and join with these gentlemen just to have a nice and great conversation about what women need to know from us. Definitely privileged to be here with everybody. My name is Daniel Harper. I've been married for 16 years now to my lovely wife, Andrea. We have 4 children and been in church for a pretty long time, which is where I've met a couple of the gentlemen that I know here already.
Mhm.
And yeah, just grateful to have this opportunity just to share in the discussion and to hopefully help all of us grow in our relationships, both on both sides of the spectrum.
All right. Well, thank you, Daniel, for coming on. We're sure looking forward to hear from you here as we go forward. It's Clive Atkinson. Clive, are you behind the scene there? Clive was supposed to come in tonight, but maybe he didn't make it. All right, so we're going to start off with a scripture here in Genesis 1 and 26. Very familiar passage of scripture. God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the fowls of the air, over the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female created he them. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, "Be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the fowl of the air and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth." So it seemed like when God made us, gentlemen, he made us and he created us. And I don't think God wants any lazy man. He created him, he put him in the garden, and there's an expectation there to work. There's an expectation there to provide. And I believe as men, as husband, that's what our duty is when we do bring someone into into our home, into our lives, is to make things comfortable for them and to provide for them. My mother always said to my wife when we were married in a very early age, she said, "Never feel sorry for your husband when he goes to work." I says, "Really, Mom? Like no sympathy? Like what's up with that?" She says, "No, that's what he's supposed to do. He was created to work and to provide for you, and he's chosen you. So he might as well get over it, basically, right?" So thank God for mothers. I don't know if your mothers was that harsh, guys, but mine kind of was. So men, basically, when it comes to men, you know that we're affected by experiences, along with ladies too in their own ways. But we're affected by our experiences based on, particular our parents, our fathers, particularly as we're growing up. As men, we need our fathers, and we look to the fathers to be proud of us. So some of the characteristic, the traits, the attitudes that we have, it has come from our fathers, whether good or bad. There's some things that we've seen that, you know what, maybe that's not the way to go, and so we'll step up on this one, or we'll leave this one out. But I believe we're a model of who we see, and sometimes basically where we have been brought up from. So moving on. So there's some questions now. What if your husband wished your wives knew? So I ask a few men, and you folks can come in anytime as you want, okay? Or I'll call out names, but just so there won't be no lag, we can just come in anytime you want. So if you ask us, wives, men want to know, if you ask us our opinion, take it. What do you men think about that? Should they just take everything you just said out there? I mean, they've asked for your opinion, and yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Neville.
Well, I think so I guess if we're talking about what husbands wish their wives knew,
That's the topic.
In regards to opinion, I feel that because I mean, obviously there's a moment when there's a genuine ask of, what's your opinion? Should I do this, or what's your thoughts on that? But I think sometimes you can get into the situation where it's not really that your opinion they want. It's almost like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm just asking you, but regardless, I'm still going to go that direction. So I think sometimes it can be where it's like, if you don't really ask our opinion, then if you don't really want it. However, maybe it also too, it can be a form of you might need that validation as well too. So yeah, I think there's different sides of it, definitely, when it comes to that.
All right. Thanks for chiming in. Thanks for sharing. How about you, Daniel? I want to hear from Stephen too, because we had some conversation with his wife while she was listening on that.
I think when it comes to opinions, especially like Neville said, what is it that you're actually aiming at and asking us the question? Because you might be asking us for your opinion when in fact you want us to possibly agree with a position that you've already taken, or something along those lines. I do agree that maybe it's more validation that you're looking for. But if it's genuinely an opinion that you're asking for and we give that to you, there shouldn't be a sense of, if our opinion differs with something that you maybe have already thought, that needs to lead to any type of tension, confusion, or what have you. If there's something that you disagree with, which is fine, we're all married, so disagreement is part of the spectrum of life experience in marriage. But let's figure out, but don't set us up with that question. I think would probably be the best thing that I would offer. Don't let that question be an actual setup to sort of trap us. And certainly I don't say that from the standpoint of an intention behind the setup, but that it can invariably be a setup at points in time.
I'm chuckling because I've never heard it as being a setup before. What's going through my mind is, do you think, I'm coming to you, Stephen, Daniel, do you think we should have a decoding machine beside us to interpret things?
I think we need a decoding machine when we were engaged or courting. So
that's the first thing that comes to my mind. Okay, before you speak, wife, there's a decoding machine. I know this is what you're saying, but this is what you actually mean, right? So us men, I don't know about you, but us men, I'll speak to myself. I'm kind of bad when it comes to decoding. Like one of the ladies said in our past sessions, just learn to read the room. Sometimes it's not easy for us men to read the room because we're trying to decode and try to figure you out at the same time, right? So I just found that a bit humorous as you were speaking there, that just automatically, yeah, we need to have a decoding device right beside you. So I know exactly what you mean when you say X, you actually mean Y. When you say A, you actually mean B, and so forth. But Stephen, come on in.
Yes. Well, you see, a decoding machine will just take the fun out of things. You know, the, the thing about women is they are so complicated that, yeah, and I think God deliberately did that to keep us, occupied, entertained, and engaged. Because I guarantee you, any day you come across a woman that you can read totally easily, you get bored. But I do find that women are not as complicated as we think. I think, like for men, I know for me, is there are certain ground rules about them that even though I know those rules, I tend to forget them. And every now and again, I seem to need to refresh my memory. So, okay, this is because my wife and I find a lot of women tend to be very nuanced in our behavior or approach to life, very nuanced. But for us, a spade is a spade. But for a woman, a spade is not a spade. A spade can be something you use to dig up in the garden, can be a playing card. They are nuanced, right? And it in order to actually communicate effectively with them, you have to pay attention and be fully engaged. When I'm talking with my male friends, I don't have to, I can almost set myself on autopilot and we have a discussion. But with a woman, it's like you have to listen and hear what is being said and hear what is not being said. When my wife asks my opinion about something, she's usually going through a mental Rolodex of options that she has. And I realize that women tend to talk themselves through a problem, right? Whereas we will probably go in a room by ourselves and sit down and meditate and try, come up with a solution for something. What they use conversation to sift through their mental process and come to some sort of solution. So when she comes and she puts 10 dresses and say, okay, which one of these you think is best for this occasion? And so now I'm being asked as a man, I'm thinking, okay, she wants me to eliminate, right? So pick the best one first. So I say, all right, go with the green one. And she said, I like that, but I think the blue would better match that. And then the shoes. And then the more I give her my opinion, is like it makes it easier now for her to actually do her elimination. And then she makes a decision. And oftentimes it's not what I choose. So I just come to realize that when she asks my opinion, it's not necessarily say she wants me to make a decision for her. She's asking me to assist her to eliminate her options so that she can make the final decision.
You mentioned ground rules.
Yes.
Are those conscious ground rules, unconscious ground rules? Are they ground rules that has been agreed upon, or?
They're just some principles that women seem to operate by. Just like how we have certain principles, like we are logical. We are 1, 2, 3. If we don't see it, we don't necessarily convinced by it. Whereas women are very more intuitive. They go with their gut. They have this sixth sense that, even though she can't say, okay, this is the evidence, but at the same time, they are still very good at picking up on the intangibles. If you meet someone, for example, and, on paper, that person is like perfect for whatever it is that you're going to do. And your wife pulls you aside and say, I don't know, I don't like this. I don't know what it is, but I don't think we should go with this person.
Right.
And as a male, it's frustrating because you're like, give me evidence, So that's one of the things. Women are intuitive.
Definitely. I've always said that it's like the Lord has given them a sixth sense that us men don't have sometimes. But I like what you said about when they ask for our opinion, it's an opinion of elimination. It's basically saying, I'm not asking what I should wear. It's an opinion of elimination. So interested. So let's move on. So for those that have just come into the show, the topic here tonight is what every every husband wished your wives knew. So when it comes to disagreement, sometimes disagreement, they might think it comes across as an attack on the character or whatever, but not necessarily. So Daniel, what do you wish wives would know when it comes to disagreement? I mean, we can't avoid disagreement. It's a part of life. It's a part of a relationship. It can make us or it can break us. But what would you want wives to know about that?
I think when we think about disagreements, the conversations that come out of that are coming from two different spectrums of thought. And so as Stephen had mentioned, the different type of thinking that both men and women have. And I think we all know that we think differently. We have different approaches. But often I think when the conversation is happening, our thoughts are not, okay, as a man, I think this way. As a woman, I think this way. That's not a part of that's not a part of our thinking during the conversation. The only thing that's happening during the conversation is, this is how I feel. This is where I am. This is what I need to communicate. But the other side is not, and it's a two-sided thing. Now, with that in mind, us as males are far more black and white, if you will, when it comes to the way that we think.
Right.
We're in the type of approach that we have to our thinking and also in our communication. So something that comes across as seemingly personal is not in fact personal. It's just a statement as a matter of fact. However, that's not always perceived that way. Okay. So when you're hearing the statement, you're not hearing that there's no true sense in most cases, unless there's a very hotly debated disagreement. But typically, it's just a matter of fact statement that is not an attack on your character, on your person, on the way you think, on the way you feel. It's not a matter of diminishing any of these things as well. It's just, if you take it as a blanket statement, then I think it's best to deal with it as a blanket statement that does not question who you are, how you think, that it's not a personal attack. And I think oftentimes, depending on the nature of the conversation, it can come across that way. Now, certainly as men, we should take that into consideration for how we communicate. So I will never take away from that standpoint. But at the same token, I think the emphasis for women to know is that this is just a blanket statement. It's not one that is anything more than that. And we can develop from that point.
So when they find that as an attack, how do we come back from that? How do we actually have that conversation to eliminate the wall and that defense that they've built up?
Well, in my personal experience, my typical approach, if I say something that has maybe struck a nerve that I can see, first of all, I think for as men, you be observant while you're having the conversation. Because depending on the nature of your spouse, whoever you're with, they might not be the person that automatically says something, but we can see when a mood changes. We can see when a countenance has changed. And maybe there's something that we have said that has been offensive. Now, it could be nothing. It could be them processing or what have you. But what we can do is we can ask questions. We can say, did I say something that was such and such? Or sorry if I said something this way. Maybe if I say it this way. And even if you're not communicating something different, the way that you're responding to what you said or to the situation can be very helpful in helping the conversation along, and more importantly, making sure that your wife knows there's no anger, there's no frustration, or there's nothing that's beyond the scope, that's too far. Being angry is not a problem. How we communicate or how we react, those things are really the nature of the issues, right? So even if we are angry, even if we are frustrated, even if we are bothered, it doesn't mean that we communicate that in a way that causes more tension and adds on and actually it disallows from dealing with the specific area that's of concern. And while we communicate better or think about or address the change in countenance, a change in voice, even as a matter of fact, that voice aspect is really important. If we match energy, sometimes it can be a problem depending on whoever somebody is. I do my very best to try to have far more calm demeanor in my approach. And for me, I think it works. I'm generally speaking pretty calm, but it also disallows your spouse from getting angrier and building up.
Okay.
And so even if they want to sort of go where they are, it's
Mhm.
difficult to
Mhm.
be angry with somebody who is not giving you that fire to kind of stem and to grow in your emotionalism at that stage.
No, wonderful. So, you know what I got out of that too? I'm just taking this line off from the ladies here, and it's always, you'll be hearing me saying this. It's basically what you're saying is learn to read the room. When you learn to read the room, you'll know whether to step back or whether to move forward or whether to maybe there should be another conversation at another time. So reading the room and can help us in that respect. So thanks for that. Neville and Stephen, anything to add for that? The question was what husbands wish the wife knew when it comes to disagreement. Is it an attack on their character? Do they see it as an attack on their character? Neville, what's your response?
I guess in alignment with Daniel, where it's like, yeah, I think understanding that, we're not going to align or agree with everything, and we'll have disagreement. But to know that during that time that, I think is understanding your spouse, your significant other, and knowing that, there's no malicious intent with it. And in the case of, that conclusion is jumped to where it's like, I think that's where it's important to really communicate and ask, like, what did you mean by that versus just assuming, because
Right.
then all of a sudden you assume and then, start thinking about it. And then before you know it, that just ends up, sticking with them, like, and you never know, all of a sudden a few years down the road, you hear, yeah, well, remember when you said this and that, and I was like, what? It's like, no, I never meant that. I'm like, that wasn't my intention. So I think, yeah, understanding that, do they have my best interests at heart? Is it a malicious attack on me? And then if not, I mean, like, and you'll know that by understanding your spouse. And then, yeah, so that's kind of my thoughts on that.
No, good for that. So what I got out of that as you're talking is speaking is basically ask and not just assume that.
I know Daniel said something though, the temperament though, like, not getting upset. I think sometimes though, that could almost like aggravate others as well too. Like, if they're getting upset or whatever in a disagreement, and you just okay, I don't agree, and just kind of like, why are they not getting upset? Like, so I feel like it can also go another direction with that as well too.
Right.
Obviously, the energy you give can be the energy you give back, but sometimes when they might be, they're all the way up here, and then sometimes could make them stay up here because you're not getting upset as well too. It becomes almost annoying, I think.
Annoyed, yeah, definitely. As I was just thinking, as you were saying that too, when you're having that conversation, how it can come across as an attack is when we're so adamant in our belief, we're not willing to budge. Like Daniel said, I believe this is black and white to me, and so that could come across as it's an attack because we're not giving them that opportunity to really not diffuse, but we're not giving that opportunity to really come in and to be a part of the conversation because we're so non-opinionated at that time. Like this is how I see it, and then things are spearheaded from there down. Stephen, before we move on, do you have anything to add to that? I'm sure if your wife was on beside you there, she would have some. I just love her.
Oh, yeah, she'd have a lot of opinions. Well, what I wish wives knew about when we have disagreements is that if I disagree with something and I express, and I tend to be very direct. I'm like, no, I don't like that, or I can come across as being abrupt, you know, like, um, and she may think that, okay, you're beyond convincing. But what I would like Wise to know is that we are oftentimes when we disagree with something, it doesn't mean that we are beyond being convinced. I want them to understand that as a male, we can be convinced and not to take it as an offense when when we have a difference of opinion. Um, if you give me logical reasons as to why you think we should take a particular route, I am reasonable. I mean, I'm logical, you know. If you say, okay, these are the cons, and these are the pros, and the pros outweigh the cons, I'm reasonable enough to actually change my mind. I remember one time we had some difference of opinion as to how to make some. I think we're choosing paints. The holidays were coming up. I wanted to change the color of the house, a number of rooms and stuff, and make some decor changes. And if you have in mind, you know that that's one of the things that you're going to experience, and you're going to have opinions about how things should be changed. And I remember we were clashing about certain things, and I said, everything I choose, you do not agree with. And I'm like, yeah, because we're two different persons, so we're going to have a different opinion. So convince me. I just want you to convince me. And it's like, stupid, like, why do I need to convince you? But after we trash that one out, it's like the message I would say to us is, look here, most men are reasonable. If you give us a logical reason, we will change our minds. As a matter of fact, if you a layer of charm on it, you know, the feminine charm, that makes it even more effective. There are a lot of hills I'm not prepared to die on, you know. So I said, we are not fussy. We're opinionated. And sometimes it's mistaken for being that we're bossy and pushy. No, if you ask, if there's a decision to be made, I'm going to make it like a male. I'm going to do it as if I'm going to respond like I'm the leader, and I'm going to say it in a particular way. But what I want them to know is that not because I said it a particular way doesn't mean that I am beyond being convinced.
Okay. You know, a lot of things come out when you folks are speaking here, but what came out to me when you were speaking is we can be convinced. And I'm thinking, okay, we can be convinced, but it's going to take a while, wife. It's going to take a while. I can be convinced, but you're going to have to work a little bit and being opinionated, like you said. I remember we were painting a living room some years ago, and I'm used to paint at least 2 different colors, but I had to paint the wall like 3 times. The same wall 3 times. Okay.
Familiar.
But what's that? You've been there? You've been there?
Yeah, been there. Swatches and all.
This is after everything's been chosen, the right color and everything. So I said, you know what? Okay, this is the 3rd time now. This is absolute the last coat that's going on. So I believe also they teach us patience. You know, God's got a good sense of humor. You know, we ask him for patience and then we get married, right? But in a good way, gentlemen. So let's move on to our conversation. What husband wished your wives knew. Man, do we need to talk about everything that's bothering us? Do we need to talk about everything that is bothering? Do they need to hear everything? When do they need to hear it? If they need to hear it? What is it doing to us if they're not hearing it? Daniel. I'm picking on Daniel tonight.
In my opinion, no, we don't need to speak about everything. And I think if I was to just frame it for women, there are some conversations or some situations, probably I should say, where whatever the situation is, as a man, sometimes we just have to work some things out for ourselves and by ourselves. And now I know on the women's side, they'll often see, and that they'll see maybe that we're frustrated, we're hurt, and so on. So having the best of intentions to say, hey, what's going on? I want to talk about it, especially because women are more inclined to want to have a conversation when they're having an experience and needing that back and forth and so on. But men don't always need that. And it's not a matter of disallowing you from coming into our space. It's not a matter of wanting to put you at a distance, but it's a matter of there's certain things that we know, especially because of how we are. We just need a minute to process. We just need a minute to think through. We just need a minute to kind of take the time for ourselves in order to work out whatever it is that might be in the situation. So it's not about not wanting to be transparent. It's not about not wanting to engage in communication with you. Now, and once again, I think I said it from before. It's not everything. It's some things.
Right.
As men, we do need to know that there are points in time where we will have to communicate things, even if we wouldn't need to, because we don't need to talk about it to make ourselves feel better or anything like that. But because of the nature of the desire and the heart that our wives have towards us, at that point, okay, let's speak to them so that they're okay, far more at that point than us being okay. Right? But sometimes women, it's just a matter of us needing to kind of take some time to ourselves and work things through.
So my question to, and thanks for sharing, Sean, thanks for sharing all that is,
Man.
okay, Steve, you can come on in, Steve. I can hold mine. I'll keep my thoughts. So I'll hold mine. Go ahead.
Yeah, we as males, I totally agree. There are some things that I deal with sometimes where I don't need to communicate it with anyone whatsoever. Our internal mechanisms or thought processes. Sometimes the nature of it is sometimes where we don't want anyone else intruding on those, and I think our thoughts are as males is one of those retreats that we need to keep to ourselves sometimes, because our nature is not to burden anybody sometimes with what we are going through. Women deal with their issues by communicating. It helps them to work out what they are trying to sort out. But for us, it's different. We kind of go in our cave and try to process, and it's just our natural makeup. However, sometimes I have to gauge that, because what I do find is if I go into my cave and I'm processing, I might end up getting distracted by the problem in such a way that it turns into procrastination instead of making a decision.
Okay.
Because sometimes I get stumped. I'm processing something and I get stumped. And instead of saying, okay, let me escalate it to communicating with my wife or somebody else, I just I escalate it to just procrastinating. I don't know the solution, so I just put it aside, and sometimes it backfires on me, and I realize that's not really healthy. So, my first instinct is to sort it out myself. But if I am being stumped, then I know that, okay, I need to escalate this and, kind of bring my spouse into it and say, look here, this is what I'm going through, and I really don't have a clue how to deal with it at this moment.
So I'm going to go in my cave and I'm going to procrastinate.
You don't want to do that. That's problems.
If I could just jump in just quickly to add something as well that I just thought about as Stephen was speaking. Sometimes I think it might be useful for us as men that we go ahead and be proactive in saying to our spouses, hey, you know what, there's something I'm kind of working through. And so just if you see or whatever, just know that that's that. Because in my experience, one of the things that I have learned is that there would be moments where I am kind of having that, going into my cave experience and what have you. But I didn't say anything to my wife.
Right.
And so the normal conversations, the normal way that we respond with each other is not taking place. And I'm not even thinking about any of that because my attention is on whatever the circumstance is.
That's right.
Meanwhile, on her
Exactly.
end, she's
Yes.
feeling
Mm-hmm.
isolated. She's not feeling the typical normative practices of love relationship and XYZ.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is happening on her end as well. So to help alleviate, I mean,
Right.
depending on the circumstances, it is what it is. But at least if you go and say ahead of time, and it's another one of those signs of care and appreciation that you're showing in saying that,
Yes.
hey, here's where I am, here's what I'm doing. But at least they can say to themselves, okay, here he is. And I thought he was thinking about me even in the midst of that. And you get some brownie points for that, I promise you.
I'm coming to you, Noah, because let's you know, be serious and curious that women are curious and they will want to know. Okay, that's their nature. I mean, they're used to seeing us a certain way within the home, and when our attitudes, our demeanor shift, right? I might not want to talk about it right away, which is basically killing her because she's curious. She wants to know what's going on with her, man. She wants to know, is there anything that I can do to help you? I mean, that's the unconscious decision, conversation that she's having now. We don't see it. We don't see it as that. Sometimes we might see it as, you know what, I just need my space right now. But we can have our space. But I think it's exactly what you're saying, Daniel. It's how we communicate that to her. So it doesn't seem that we're pushing her away, but it's me. If you give me my space, what I need right now, or this alone time, so to speak, it'll just help me to rebound so that I can come back to you in a way that I want to come back with that love and connection, as you had mentioned. So yeah, that's great. Neville, did you have any comment about so? Men, what husbands wish their wives knew, does men need to talk about everything that is bothering them?
I think the points were pretty good, like really good. The only thing I would say is, in those moments, we like to try and figure things out ourselves, and I think having an understanding where it's like, what's going on is like just give me a moment or I'm good. Let me sort it out, because I mean, I think it's important for us to be able to process information and figure things out too. Because I mean, like even from like a biological standpoint or our mental standpoint of develop me, trying to figure things out. I need to learn to figure things out, or develop these pathways so then I'm better at problem solving.
Right.
And then the other side of it is where, say, this thing's really bothering me, but then like, my wife, if she sees me and she notices my mood or something, and it's a couple of days, then she'll be like, all right, man, that's enough. Like you've had enough time to do that. And then, but usually, if I'm like, I'm good, I like to try and figure things out myself. And I like that because then it's like, it just helps increase my ability to, like I say, to problem solve and go through things and stuff. And I mean, it can work the other way too, where, she's going through something, if she wants to talk about it, or if she's like, I'm good, leave it. And then if I see she's really struggling, then I'll come again. Same thing for her. I think that if you get to that point where we get stuck, then it's important to be like, all right, you know what? I'm struggling with this. Usually I thought I'd be able to figure it out and then bring them in. But I think just it's important. I mean, them understanding you, I think, can help with that situation as well too.
Well, we have a comment. Again, thanks for sharing that. I've got my 2 cents here too in a minute, but we got a comment here in the section here that yes, the wives are saying, I want to know. Why do you need to know? She said, because I need to pray. I need to know what to pray about. So, I mean, Daphne, thanks for commenting there, but she has a point in that respect, right? You might not be able to divulge everything that you want to divulge because whatever the situation is, but like I said, they're curious. So if I know, at least I know I can go down on my knees and I can pray about it for God to step in and whatever the situation might be for God to turn it around. But I have an acronym that I came across here about do we need to talk about everything? It's called WAIT, WAIT, and that is why am I talking? Why am I talking? I need to wait. Is it something that I need to talk about right now to build up her curiosity, to push her away? Can this wait until another time? But I'll continue doing what I'm doing. But I imagine it depends to how long you want to make that thing fester inside of you. So when we mentioned about our cave, even though we're waiting, but we end up in our cave, what's the best way, man? This just got downloaded in my spirit. What's the best way to lure us out of our cave?
Food, sex, respect.
That's another topic, but go ahead.
I,
So,
I
so you're saying that if she wants to be intimate with you, you know, I've got something waiting for you. The bedroom's upstairs, it's all made. We've got candlelights, whatever. That's going to lure you out of your cave. Physical touch. Okay.
pleasant distractions.
It's a distraction from the reality, right?
I think
Okay.
having situational awareness is important though too, right? So that because not everything is meant to be talked about, especially if it's going to cause stress. I feel like sometimes we can manage a lot of stressful situations a lot easier. So I think not talking about it can also, you know, it doesn't make sense. You have two individuals stressed at the same time as well too.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell you the truth, something even as simple as being there for support, like, you know, you're there, you're frustrated, your hands on your head, and you're on the couch, and they just come and sit beside you, just rub your head or something. You know what I mean?
Right,
Something
right.
as simple as that, like
Mm-hmm.
just being there. Because in the end, I mean, I think men need to feel. I think the biggest thing is that they feel supported by their wife.
Right.
And regardless of how hard things are, how difficult things are,
Mhm.
confusing, just being there and being supportive can
Right.
And without even saying anything, because I think we express a lot by nonverbal. I
Right.
think
Yes, yes, we do.
And it's interesting, Neville, because the women came across and basically said something very similar too, right? When they have something that they're going through at that moment, yeah, they don't need to be sometimes just a whole lot of words, just to have you there by my side. That's more than words can actually speak. That's more than you can actually say right now, because right now you're actually being present with me, and that's what I need. I don't know how to articulate it. I don't know how to come out of what I'm going through here, but just you being present, like it seems like it's enough. It seems like it's enough. Um, so somebody wrote in the comment here, most times the man is pondering his behavior is off. She will be, by him pondering his behavior, she gets anxious. So I believe that she should be told something. What's your comments on that? She should be told something, and what should that something be to reduce the anxiety that's being created?
I think I think we kind of addressed it a little bit. Just first and foremost, what we can do, knowing where we might be or how we might be presenting ourselves, to just say, hey, there's something I'm thinking about going through, what have you. But there's something that Neville mentioned that I think I want to touch on.
Go ahead.
I think there also needs to be the level of trust in our relationship,
Right.
where if I'm not saying something, that can be okay. I don't think it has to be every single time. So we as men need to be mindful that we can't use this as our as an escape card or anything like that. But sometimes I think just trusting that it's something that's about me, and the support that I need is just you being there. The support is not necessarily the conversation that you might want, and I understand how you feel, but when we're talking about, you know, I think we've all probably at this point heard about love languages and what is needed by a specific person in the way that they need it. Well, the truth of the matter is, this might be one of those instances where what I need is not what you're looking for. Right? What I need is not the communication that would be normal and regular for you, which is perfectly fine and valid. But that's not what I need at this present moment.
Right.
What I need is just to, if you tell me that, hey, yeah, I know you're dealing with some stuff, but I just want you to know I'm there for you. I think that there's a level of comfort and support, as was mentioned. that even if I don't talk to you about the situation,
Right.
it might lure me once again out of that feeling to say, because sometimes, Stephen mentioned sometimes being stumped about things, and I've come to situations that there's may not be a response at that point, or I may not get to a response. And sometimes what I've realized is that maybe I just need to leave this one. And sometimes that support of just being there helps me personally to change my focus on what it is that I'm thinking about at that present moment, and say, you know what, I might be overthinking this, or this might be more of a big deal or less of a big deal that I'm giving attention to. And so just being available for that type of support, let us know you're there for us regardless of what we're going on. But also, like I said from the top, trusting that some things are just not needing that conversation.
It's interesting. That's the word I wrote down while you were speaking, because that alone will settle the water, so to speak, is trust. So trust me with my feelings as well as I will trust you with your feelings. This is not a means of pushing you away, but if we understand one another and trust one another, I'm not trying to hide anything from you, good or bad, but just trust me in this moment and just be present with me. So, no, beautiful. So I appreciate you, man, for the feedback on that. I think we have some time here. Is 8:17. Less than 10 minutes to go. There's a long list here, man. So I hope you men are coming back on here next Thursday. If not, I got to get some more fill-ins here. But I got a beautiful trio here, so we're on the roll here. Okay, let's just finish off with one fatherhood challenge. What would and all of us that's on here right now, we have children. What would the husband wants to know? Where the wives are concerned about fatherhood challenge. We talk about motherhood challenge with the ladies, but now what about fatherhood challenge? What would you want these wives or the ladies to know, or those coming up to get married? What do you want them to know?
I would definitely. Can I go ahead?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. My advice to anyone who is getting married or planning to have children is, you have to build a catalog of competencies, right? Because you're going to find a number of challenges going to come your way. And the more that you are able to deal with those challenges, the smoother family life you're going to have, right? So sometimes we instinctively think that, oh, parenthood, it will come to me. I will just roll with the punches out. But no, you don't want to reach a river before you figure out how you're going to build your raft. So for males, certain competencies are this is basic. Like I knew I needed to learn how to do basic electrical repair. Like if the switch goes bad, I need to be able to fix that. If the plumbing, if there's a leak, and the plumber cannot come until the next day. It happens at midnight. I can't get a plumber.
Never can talk about that.
I have to know how to deal with that. The car maintenance, the yard maintenance. These are things that basic first aid. When you have kids, you're gonna need to know how to deal with certain household injuries. And these are things that we tend not to think about. But if you approach it like you're planning for something, then when you get there, when the challenges come, you just want to prepare. You want to. It's like if you're going to prepare for a job, you go and get trained. You get your qualifications, and then you go and apply for the job. And if you don't take that same approach with parenthood, then you'll make mistakes, a lot more mistakes. You're gonna find you're gonna make them, but that were not necessary. And it's going to be harder than was necessary if you are just prepared.
Fatherhood challenge, yeah.
My competencies.
Go ahead. What was that? No, what I got out of that is also to for the men that are listening and those that are on that journey where they're going to get into a relationship is what is in your toolbox.
Yes.
What is in your tool? What are you bringing into? Like you said, if you can't even change a light bulb, or you got to call an electrician to change a light bulb. I'll just leave it at that. But Neville, how about you? Come on, and thanks Stephen for chiming in on that. What wives need to know about fatherhood challenges.
So I guess I got a few points. So the first one would be time for yourselves. So before having children, making sure that I for myself personally, I never rushed into having children. I wanted to make sure that we had time for each other,
Mm-hmm.
because that priority tends to shift a bit, even though you do your best to not neglect each other, but it can happen at times. So making sure that you have time with each other, know each other, experience each other before. After having children, trying to do your best to try and do that as well too. And then also having time, like, providing personal time. Like I know especially for, I get it sometimes, like for spouses, for example, that might be on maternity leave, and they're dealing with the children all day, and to come in and all of a sudden it's kind of like you come in, you have a baby, like give them time to compress, or give us time to decompress. And like I understand, like, yeah, you're tired and stuff, but in the end, I mean, if both are tired, like and not to say that it should be on one person, but I think it's just still important to, I think, give the husband time to collect himself, eat, decompress, and then get involved as well. And that's where that also, like I said, that balance of support of each other's energy, making sure that each person's getting rest, and trying to support each other as much as possible through there. And then I guess understanding too that here's the other side of it, is that you have these little human beings that are sponges, and they're vulnerable, and regardless of how tired you are, and I've had those moments where I've been dog tired as well, but
they don't care.
Still engaging with them, and trying to still trying to raise them and help out with that as well too. So I think that's important, but overall is finding a way where you both can manage your energy, and if you see one person's energy is off, especially like say for if maternity leave, or the spouse is coming in late, don't just kind of dump on them, or here's the child kind of thing. Give them time, and then the husband obviously being aware of his wife's energy as well too, and making sure that she's okay in that whole situation.
Right. It's all about, when you think about the whole thing about fatherhood challenges, it's all about balance, although sometimes we just feel so unbalanced because we've got so much things that is happening at one time. Like you mentioned, we have work, some are taking secondary education, and just maybe sports in there, and how do you fit all that in? But it can be done, balance. But at the end of the day, somebody said you can't balance God, so he's always got to be at the top. Everything else got to be balanced, but you can't balance God. He's got to be first and foremost. Daniel, you can just you want to just end off on that? We got about 2 more minutes here, and then we'll be closing off. And
sure, no problem. I think as parents, we do have our children. Mothers tend to have the children coming to them, asking them various questions from time to time, and more often than not going to mom. I think one important question for women that I would want them to hear or to know as husbands is to ask the question, did you ask your father? The reason for that question is because sometimes there can be an inadvertent tendency from spouses to undermine what has already been said by their husband because they didn't ask the question, did you ask your father?
Right.
And so because the child goes to mom after already asking dad, they don't realize that there's already been a response there. and then the child is not happy because maybe their mom has answered in a different way than what their father said. And so that can have a particular tension and impact, and long term affect what the child is going to do in terms of what they think is going to cause them to have success for what they want to do. Mommy might say yes more often or not. And it also helps to ask that question, because let's say that there has been times I've said no, that probably should have been a yes. One, validate my no in front of our children. Then let's have a conversation and say, to figure out what my thinking was, and also to help guide me so that my response will align in what makes the most sense with regards to the situation. Or you realize maybe there were some other things that you didn't know that they said that they did, or what have you, that for the reason why I respond the way that I did. So that's quickly what I would say is an important question to ask. Did you ask your father?
No, that's good. Basically what I'm getting out of you, dear Daniel, is so you have good cop and bad cop then, right? Don't kid yourself. The children know who to go to when because of the one that's always saying yes, or they know how to lean into to the father, to the mom. But definitely ask the question, because it can become conflicted now, because now all the mother might have to say after you have already made a decision is, well, why did you say that? Or why did you make that decision? Now it's not a conversation between you and the child. It's a conversation now between you and your wife now, right? And that causes a little bit of challenge before the night is up. But gentlemen, I really appreciate your time. Daniel coming in from Toronto, Neville from Edmonton, Stephen from Jamaica, and I'm in Toronto for the next little while here. I just want to give you a shout out, guys, that I really appreciate you coming in. Appreciate from the comment, from the feedback that we've had, and definitely there'll be a part 2. I think I've only got you about 5 of these questions here. There's about 15 on the list. So if you guys are free again next week, I'll touch base with you afterward. Appreciate your time. And I am your host. Those that are listening, Bonitto Grange, your relationship and life coach. We tune in here every Friday at 5:30 Mountain Standard Time. God bless you. Have a wonderful evening, and hope you've got a little bit of something out of this, wives, and also the husband that has been listening. We'll talk soon. Have a wonderful day, evening, night, wherever you may be. Thanks again, gentlemen. Bless you all.
God bless.